Children's laughter, children's tears, childish joys of childhood years, fondest memories of our once happy home. It's not death that brings the pain, I would face it all again, but it grieves me so to leave you all alone. Do the wee ones still sigh when they hear their daddy's name? Do they sadly ask you why I won't be home again? How hard it is to know I'll never see them grow. Let my dying bring for them a better land. May they never know the fears that blighted my young years, nor the shackles that have bound my native land. May they see the joy of life and not cruel civil strife, foreign laws imposed by brutal strangers' hands. Do the wee ones still sigh when they hear their daddy's name? Do they sadly ask you why I won't be home again? How hard it is to know I'll never see them grow. Let my dying bring for them a better land. Let them grow in love and truth, let them blossom into youth, guided by their mother's loving hand. Let them cherish Ireland's pride, for this Joe McDonnell died. Let them know their father loved them and his land. Do the wee ones still sigh when they hear their daddy's name? Do they sadly ask you why I won't be home again? How hard it is to know I'll never see them grow. Let my dying bring for them a better land. Let them know their father loved them and his land.
Met Joe McDonald in the summer of 1972 in the aftermath of the mini walkout from the people of Lennodown, when the area was militarised by several hundred British Army soldiers. I know from speaking to Joe and listening to others that he was a significant member of A Company 1st Battalion, the Belfast Brigade. And Joe and others would have been doing foot patrols, armed foot patrols, in the greater Rossnareen area and engaging the British Army at that time. It wasn't until 2 years later that I was formally introduced to him. I was transferred from Cage 2 to Cage 3 in Long Kesh, where I was interned as a 16-year-old. And I was put into the same hut as Joe. Joe was our hut OC, so he had responsibility for maintaining discipline and order and hygiene and looking after the morale of the men. Soon after, Joe was fortunate enough to be released, and again, when I was released in the summer of 1975, I would have met Joe in the area, as both of us are from the Lenadoon area. Joe was like every other person of that age. He worked, he liked his social life, he loved playing cards, he loved going for a pint with his brothers. And in the background, he was very disciplined and measured as to how he went about his Republican activities. We were arrested in Dunmurry in the aftermath of several explosions and a shootout with the British Army and the RUC. 3 people were wounded. Myself, Joe, Bobby Sands and Sean Lavery were arrested in a car with a weapon. We spent 9 months on remand before we were sentenced to 14 years. At our trial, it lasted for a day and a half as opposed to the slotted period of 3 weeks. We refused to recognise the court, and at the end of the trial, a confrontation broke out. Bobby Sands was manhandled by the screws, so Joe and I intervened, and we ended up in fisticuffs with a couple of prison officers being injured. It came as no surprise to me that he went on hunger strike, because he was a tower of strength. He was very stubborn and principled, and I understood very well why Joe would put his name forward. I had the honour and privilege to be in H7 during the mass breakout of 1983, and I think I can speak on behalf of all prisoners when we say that in some part that was a debt of honour being paid to our fallen comrades of 1981, not just in the inside but those who died on the outside also, as a result of what was taking place in the H Blocks and Armagh prison.
In October '77, Bobby Sands, Joe McDonnell and Seamus Finucane arrived in our wing in H5, and we were so glad to see them because they made such a difference to the wing. Seamus was moved out after about a month or so, and Bobby lasted 6 or 7 months, because what happened was he was doing what we call a skircher, shouting from wing to wing in Gaelic, and the screws thought if they moved Bobby out, then that will break the lines of communication, which of course it didn't. Thankfully Joe remained in the wing, and it was a real honour and a privilege to spend those last few years of his life in H5, because he was quite a character. He brought so much to the wing, very confident, very strong individual, and that confidence and strength was infectious. He could talk for Ireland, and he was very witty and humorous, and also have to say he was a real raker as well. He talked incessantly about his family. Now, I didn't know his family, but after a while I got to know them all. I got to know his wife, Greta, the love of his life, his children, Joseph and Bernadette, who was very, very passionate about, and of course Maura and Eilish and his brothers and so on. I got to know them all. Joe always wanted voices, always wanted to hear voices, always wanted the wing buzzing alive, because it sent a message out. It sent a message out to Scrooge that we're here, we're resisting, we're not going away, morale was good. And any time, he must have had like a gauge, any time the talk went down, the buzz went down, Joe was up organising, whether it be somebody telling a book, a sing-song, a debate, a quiz, or even just to get saying something controversial, just to get the crack going, to get everybody up, to make sure that no one was getting depressed, that no morale wasn't flagging. And he always did that. He was renowned for doing that. Even when he was most needed, he did it. Whenever times were difficult, wing shifts were always a nightmare. They were unpredictable. You didn't know what was in front of you. But at the very least, the way they worked it was brought you into a cell, big cell, there was a mirror there, and they pulled you over the mirror, and then they would boot the back of your legs and you would go down. It was passive resistance, I would imagine, for most people, not with Joe. When Joe went for the mirror search, he refused to bend. They had to drag him over the mirror, and they would boot away at the back of his legs. I remember a screw a couple of years later saying to me that Joe McDonald was the toughest person he ever came across. They booted and booted his legs to get him down. He must have had iron rods in his legs. The problem for me was if I came afterwards, they were in a frenzy because they couldn't get Joe down, and therefore I would have suffered. I was always hoping that the wing shifts would be anti-clockwise, so I would be there before Joe rather than after him, because if I came after Joe, I was in for a hiding, because he had them up to a million. But that was typical of Joe. Joe would not bend. When Joe went on hunger strike, unfortunately he was moved. He was just a cell away from me. He was moved to the top of the wing. And he left a big gap because he was always great crack. He was very humorous, always had plenty to say. They said he could talk for Ireland. I was a bit worried about him because he was at the top of the wing, isolated, away from the rest of us, even though he's still in the wing. He was at the very top, and there was a cell between them, were empty, so he couldn't communicate with the rest of the lads. But we did obviously communicate with him. And I always remember it was Ascension Thursday, and I had a visit. And coming back from the visit, I wrapped in Joe's cell coming back, lifted the flap and spoke into him. And the screw was shouting at me, move on, move on, move on. And I just wanted to have a conversation with him because I'd missed all his crack. And he was telling me he was okay and how are you and how did the visit go. And I had a chalk to rock, obviously, from Greta, and I couldn't pass it. He obviously wanted to get that as well. And I said, in so many words, I said to him, I'll get that to you later. I went back to my cell. And about an hour later, I heard the bolts shooting. It was Joe's cell. And Joe shouted out, "That's me away, lads." And he shouted down to me, "All the best." And that was the last I heard of him. And he left a massive gap in our wing. We wanted to give him a good send-off, have a concert, sing song. He never got that. So we're a bit demoralised about that, because he was so important to us. He was such a key figure in the wing, and we didn't get it. And then we got the word that he died. I'll never forget it. It was Gina McCormick had the wing radio. It was a small crystal set. He shouted across to me at First Sasu Bass, and the wing was just so quiet. And you just hear the pipes rapping going up the wing. You hear the voices, First Sasu Bass, and the wing was just dead. And it was a shock because coming on the heels of the hope we had built up that there was going to be a breakthrough, we weren't expecting it. And even though 4 lads had died before, we couldn't harden yourself to anyone's death, and particularly Joe, who was with us for so long.
For many of us, 1981 will stand out as one of the worst years of our lives, certainly as one of the worst traumatic periods that we were involved in struggle. It was, of course, the year of the hunger strikes, and particularly those of us who were imprisoned as POWs, along with our 10 very, very courageous comrades who gave their lives on a gruelling battle and hunger strike to retain political status, fighting against Thatcher's criminalisation policy. We will certainly remember the hardship, the heartache, and the trauma of that year. As OC of the prisoners, I went to the prison hospital on frequent occasions to visit the hunger strikers. And I was never ceased to be moved by the courage, the determination and the dedication of every single one of our hunger strikers, who each displayed that sense of understanding of what that battle was about and understanding where they were going, and really appreciating that their lives were on line in order to secure a victory against criminalisation. And certainly in the end of it, after we'd lost those 10 comrades, we were able to bury criminalisation. And of course, one of those 10 heroes of struggle was Joe McDonnell, whose anniversary occurs at this period. And I met Joe up in the prison hospital, and of course I just was amazed at the manner in which I was welcomed in and greeted. In fact, I was up to talk to the hunger strikers about potential or moves that had resolving the conflict. And quite frankly, I was taken aback by Joe's concern for me as opposed to the concern he had for himself. He was ensuring that I was seated comfortably, that I need a jug of water, move up closer where he could hear me speaking and get me a seat. And he was making sure that I was made very, very comfortable. And here was I going back to my cell and leaving him and leaving them, continuing on hunger strike. And it was only a couple of days after this that Joe McDonald died. And what impressed me about him was his concern for everybody else, his concern for his comrades, his concern for the struggle and for our people outside the prisons involved in the struggle and our supporters. He was never going to let anybody down. And he impressed that upon me before I left the hospital wing. And he had said to me that, have you no fear. Don't you be worried about Joe McDonnell. Joe McDonnell's strong. So I left the prison hospital shortly later, moved and possibly, unable to catch my thoughts at the determination and dedication of this man and the other men involved in struggle, who were fighting that our people would have success in the struggle for liberation for this country. I want to sing a song now which can be attributed to all the hunger strikers, but we're particularly remembering a legend, Joe McDonnell, today. Doesn't seem quite so long ago, last time that I saw you. Ain't it funny how the memories grow? It seems they always fold around you. Tried to break you in a living hell, but they couldn't find a way. So they killed you in an H-block cell. I hope that all would turn away. Thought your spirit wouldn't rise again, but you dared to prove them wrong. And in death you tore away the chains. So let the world hear freedom's song. Yet the heartache and pain linger on. They're still here though it's so long since you've gone. But we're stronger now. You showed us how freedom's fight can be won. Wish there was an easy road to choose to bring the heartache to an end. But easy roads are always sure to lose. I've seen it time and time again. If you could stand by me like yesterday, I'd find the strength to carry on. So let your spirit shine along the way, and our day will surely come. Yet the heartache and pain linger on. We're still here, though it's so long since you've gone. But we're stronger now. You showed us how freedom's fight can be won if we all stand as one.
I actually knew Joe's wife Greta before I met Joe. We'd been born opposite each other in Corby Way. In fact, Mrs. Healy delivered me in number 17 Corby Way. I then met Joe in Long Kesh. We were both interned together, and then I met him subsequently after we were both released. I think around 1975-76. Joe, of course, had a reputation of being a very active Republican, but also a very, very funny man, very genuine and sincere man. I had been barred from visiting the H blocks after the first hunger strike. I had my last visit with Bobby Sands on the 19th of December 1980. Around about the 4th of July, I think it was, Mark McGuinness was contacted by a Derry businessman called Brendan Duddy, who in the past had acted as a go-between, a mediator between the leadership of the movement and representatives of the British government. Duddy told us that the Brits had been in contact and were interested in the statement that had been issued by the prisoners the day before. Although reading the state papers that were released after 30 years, my understanding of it now is that Brendan Duddy told the Brits that the Republican movement were in contact with him, and that there was a great danger there of both sides believing that the other side was ready to compromise. So on the Sunday, we were in contact with Duddy, who was in contact with the British, and we wanted a demonstration that we were actually in contact with people who had power and authority to initiate a settlement, whatever way that would come about. So my name was put forward, and the word came back that I could go in and see the hunger strikers and Mick McFarland, the OC of the IRA prisoners in the jail. I went up to the prison. It was a Sunday, so there was no normal visits, and I went through the prison officer's gate, and immediately there was a row there. One of the officers turned around and says, "This is a sellout, what's that bastard doing in here?" And the civil servant who was handling me told him to keep quiet, that I was in there on business. So I went in to see the hunger strikers, and I was brought into the canteen. I was at the bottom of the table. Joe was wheeled in a wheelchair. He was in a bad state, but he's still articulate. He had only 2 or 3 days left to live. On my left hand side was Kieran Doherty from Andersonstown. He and his eldest brother Michael and I had been at school together and in jail together. So there's Kieran Doherty, then there was Tom McElwee, and then Kevin Lynch on this side of the table. from Joe. Next to Joe was Mickey Devine. Next to Mickey Devine was Lawrence McKeown, and next to Lawrence McKeown was Paddy Quinn. Martin Hurston was also on hunger strike, but he was too ill to attend the meeting. So Joe was, very solicitous towards me. Get Danny water, and I have a vague memory that I think he was actually still smoking. So I explained to him that what had happened. The British government was in contact with us, that we were viewing this as the opening of some type of negotiations, and of course, because of the bitter experience of the ending of the first hunger strike, the demand was that a representative of the British government or a senior representative of the NIO with authority would come in and stand over whatever was going to be thrashed out and agreed with the hunger strikers. So Bick left me to go in to see the hunger strikers. I phoned Jerry Adams. I told him that I was in the prison hospital. I'd met all of the hunger strikers, bar Martin Hurston, told them what was going on, and that we were waiting on the next development. I think I was either still on the phone or just put the phone down, and a governor called John Pepper, deputy governor called John Pepper, burst through the door. What the F are you doing in my prison? Get you out of here. And I was totally taken aback, because I thought we were there to sort this protest and the hunger strike out and see if anybody else was losing their lives. And he ordered me out of the jail, and I said, I'm in here to help negotiations, get out of my jail. So I was taken out of the jail. I never saw Bick or the hunger strikers again, and I was brought out in a minibus back to the area where the prison officers arrived for duty, and the one that had been slobbering was laughing now that I was being taken out. So that wasn't a good sign about the sincerity of what the British government were. But we later learned, of course, that there was major divisions within the British government, that the NIO, mostly unionists, loyalists, the prison officers, 99% unionists, that there was splits within those organisations. They were opposed to a resolution of the hunger strike, and our negotiations were being driven by basically the Foreign Office, which had a lot of power, but the Foreign Office was up against sections of the Home Office and the NIO. So it was quite an ordeal, knowing that you were leaving that hospital, you were still going to be alive afterwards, and these people were facing imminent death. And it was particularly difficult because I had a personal relationship with Joe, going back to former comrades in Long Cash. He was quite a character on the outside, and Joe was like, "Don't be worrying about me, Danny. I'm fine." And I was concerned about the length of time negotiations would take. But Joe was just saying, "Don't be worrying about me. I'm 100%. I'm solid." And it was just, you look back and you see, Joe had 2 days left of life in him, and the disgrace and the immorality is that when that hunger strike ended, the British government basically give the prisoners not just their 5 demands, but when I was in the H blocks in the 1990s, we ran the jail, ran the wings. Prison officers dealt with the IRA leadership in the jail, and of course, after the peace process, after the Good Friday Agreement, all of the prisoners were given basically an amnesty. So the British government, of course, knew all along that they were political prisoners, and this was punishment. This was just a ruthless attitude by them towards the most vulnerable of people who were locked up in a cell, overwhelmed by warders who hated and despised them. And it was a very, very dark period in our history. The experience is seared into my mind, especially in the minds of the hunger strikers, but more so in the minds of their families. And in a way, those 7 months of hunger strike was our 1916. Make no doubt about that. The inspiration 39 years later, the example of those men and their families still to this day inspires people.
On the morning of Joe's funeral, the coffin was taken out of the family home and our national flag was placed upon it. And we made our way up Leonardine Avenue into St. Alfred Plunkett Church, where we had Mass. And afterwards, when we came out of the church, there was huge crowds gathered on the pavements to pay their respects to Joe and his family. We made our way down Landing Avenue, down Shaw's Road, and people had come out of their homes. Just the whole street was thronged with people, the pavements were thronged with people. And we made our way down towards where Connolly House is now, and the cortege had stopped, and everyone expected what was going to happen was the firing party had come out, fired a volley of shots over Joe's coffin and proceeded to leave the scene. I went round St Agnes's Drive and round the back of where the volley of shots was fired into the house in St Agnes's Drive to see if I could lend a hand to tidy up the house and clean up after everyone had left. And the British Army came into the street, lots of vehicles, jeeps, armoured vehicles. And someone shouted, "There's the Brits," and everyone in the house scattered. Some went out the back door windows, the kitchen window. Some of us ran upstairs. I don't know why I ran upstairs, what was going to happen there, maybe for safety, like maybe they were expecting the Brits to come in and shoot all around us. And I remember Shawnee Simpson and Peter Rooney were in the front room, and me and two other guys were in the back room. They had put a wardrobe up against the door. They proceeded to jump out through the window, but because of my injury to my leg, I was afraid to take that jump. And the Brits come up the stairs. I heard shooting downstairs first of all, and a lot of shouting. And they went into the front bedroom first of all, where Peter and Sean were. I heard a lot of shouting, commotion and banging. I heard them getting taken out and threw down the stairs. And they shouted into me, "How many's in the room?" And I said, "There's just one." But before that, they shouted they had fired shots in the room, but I knew to lay on the ground. I knew they were going to open up on me. And I lay on the ground, and the whole room was riddled, and the plaster was coming off the walls, and the black coat I had on was just covered in white dust. And when they stopped shouting, that's when they shouted, "How many's in the room?" And I said, "Just one." And I was able to get the wardrobe door back from the door, opened the door, and as soon as that happened, they trailed me by the hair and threw me down the stairs, out onto the street, trailed me over to the jeep by the hair, and Peter and Sean were already in the jeep. Peter Rooney had a serious eye injury to his face. He got hit with a rifle butt. Then Mickey Brady joined us in the back of the jeep. One of the IOs came and asked us our names, and we all refused to give our names. And then the two Brits trailed out a body from the house. We could see it getting trailed across the street, face down, and just threw face down in front of at the back of the jeep. And the t-shirt was pulled up, and I could see a bloody boot print on the back. And I found out later that was Paddy Adams. He had been shot in the back as he was attempting to get out through the kitchen window of the house with a rifle. We were then taken to Castlereagh and questioned for a couple of days then. In Castlereagh, it was around about the 11th, 12th of July, and a lot of the cops were drunk. And one of them threatened to rape me. Well, just one in the room on his own. He threatened to rape me. And he said no woman would believe me. Another time during my time in Castlereagh, I was in the shower and the cops had sent in a guy. It was an older guy, and he had kind of a brown jacket on, like a storeman's jacket. And he came in when I was naked in the bathroom, and he made some comment to me then, and I was shouting at him to get out, you know. But it was always threats. And then my father was arrested too. He was up in Donegal Celtic having the pint. Because he drove a white van belonging to Donegal Celtic, which was in the street we were arrested in, they took him to Castlereagh and held him for a couple of days too, and it took a terrible toll on him, on his health. I was sentenced to 8 years in prison.
Once upon a time there was Irish ways and Irish laws, villages of Irish blood, awakened to the morning. awakening to the morning. Then the Vikings came around. They turned us up and turned us down, and started building boats and towns. They tried to change our living. They tried to change our living. Cromwell and his soldiers came. They started centuries of shame, but they could not make us turn. We are a river flowing. We are a river flowing. Again, soldiers came. They burned our houses, stole our grain, and shot the farmers in their fields while working for a living. Working for a living. 800 years we have been down. Now that secrets of the water sound has kept the spirits of a man above the pain descending. Above the pain descending. Today our struggle carries on. Now I wonder if I live so long to see the gates being opened up to our people and our freedom. To our people and our freedom. Once upon a time there was Irish ways and Irish slows, the lieges of Irish blood, awakening to the morning. Awakening to the morning.
My memories of my daddy are like every other wee girl's memories. Him coming in, laying in the settee, taking off his boots, his Chelsea boots. His feet were stinking, but if you polished his boots, you got a couple of pennies and down to the shop for sweets. And I can remember going down to work a few times, down where he worked down the falls in the upholsterer place, and the stairs were broke, so he always got somebody to lift you up and then pull you on up. It was like a big open place. And I also remember when he'd come home after being away for a while, broken arms, black eyes, but he always had a present for you, if it was a hull or a wee bit of jewellery, or he just told us he was away working. That was supposed to save us from knowing that he'd been lifted and beat and whatever else happened to him at the time. The next memories I would have is my daddy got sentenced 14 years, and then he refused to wear a uniform, so which meant we didn't get to visit him. He didn't take visits. My mum explained to us all why he wouldn't take visits and everything else, so we just accepted it. And our way of corresponding with him was through wee letters, wee columns that you'd have sat and wrote, and then you'd have put them into wee tiny things and then wrapped them in cling film. And it's funny, we laugh about it now. I mean, if you'd have got into trouble or anything in school, or if you'd have been fighting with your friends or whatever, we were never afraid of my mummy, but see, as soon as she said, "I'm writing to your daddy," that was it, hit in the head. It was just one of them things. The next memories would be sort of when, well, we always done protests and we always walked the streets, and that's all we did really. And the next thing was Bobby Sands was going on hunger strike. And Bobby was a good friend of my daddy's, and we'd run in and out of the house. And then I'll never forget the night my mummy sat us down. She brought us up to her room. We were going to bed, me and Joseph. And she just sat us down and told us, your daddy's going on hunger strike tomorrow. It was a wee bit much, I suppose, we were only kids to take in. But it was sort of new, you know. We knew what was happening and what we were up against. So the very next morning, as soon as we opened the blinds, the TVs were there and reporters, and we just never got a chance. So we didn't. So that was okay. And then we were getting to see our daddy for the first time after 4.5 years. I can remember being so excited, so excited. We went up to the jail, me and Joseph, mummy, and one of my aunts. And I can just remember seeing him for the first time. He hadn't changed. To me, he hadn't changed. He was still my daddy. And we run over and we sat on his knee. Somebody says, you know, maybe you shouldn't sit on his knee. And he says no. He'll have us beside him for as long as he could. That was it. Then I'd been to America the year before, and we had planned, me and Joseph both, to go July 1981. So as time approached to first go to America, we decided we weren't going. We couldn't go. We'd been down in Sligo canvassing for my daddy when he stood for the elections, and we just wanted to be with my mummy, just to be with her. She was our rock. And I remember getting in one day to see my daddy. He was in bed. He was in the hospital this time, and saying, we're not going to America, we're staying. And he says, Bernadette, please, go to America. Go and tell them what's happening. Tell them what they're doing. Just go to America. So I went to America because my daddy wanted me to go to America. And as soon as I got there, I'll never forget it. It was completely different from the year before. I done TV interviews, I done radio interviews. I never unpacked my suitcase. I just had a feeling. The first day I arrived, I actually went out and bought my presents because I just knew I wasn't staying. So I think I was there for about 8 or 9 days. And during them 8 or 9 days, I got phone calls from home saying they're doing novenas, they're doing this, they're doing that. But I knew my daddy wasn't getting any better. So this one day, my uncle phoned me and says, are you coming home? And I said, yeah, I want to come home. So I went home. My aunt Peggy and my cousin met us, I think it was in Shannon Airport at the time, and we drove up. Probably slept the whole way home till we got to Candy Way, and there was a busing fire. And I remember my cousin, she put the window down, she shouted, what's the bus burning for? And he shouted, Joe McDonald's dead. That's how I found out my daddy was dead. I can't really remember much from then until I reached the house, and Joseph was standing outside. He was waiting on me, and he just put his arms around me and he says, Bernadette, he done it for us. He done it for us. So the next thing was the funeral. My daddy's body was brought home, and the house never stopped. They came from everywhere. All the ones from Sligo come up. People, they just came from everywhere. The house just never ever stopped. And then the day of the funeral, it was my 11th birthday. And I can remember we were getting ready, and my mummy just holding us, and she was just so strong. Where she got her strength from? Well, she told us, she says, I got it from your daddy. We went out onto the street, and there was people everywhere, thousands. And I can remember, that was the last. I wasn't going to see my daddy again. That was it. And we just went over with guidance from our mum, and we kissed the coffin, and we just whispered how much we loved him and how proud we were of him. It was hard. We got to Andersonstown, and they done the volley of shots, and that was okay. Next minute, there was mayhem. We were only kids. I remember my mummy grabbing us by the hands and just saying, keep walking, keep walking. The bullets were flying past us, and my mummy says they couldn't get him in life, and now they're trying to get him in his coffin. And she held us tight, and we walked down to the graveyard. It was hard, but we done it with the most respect and honour that we could. Looking back in 1981, it was hard for everybody, not just us. But when I look now and I see my kids, my daddy's grandchildren, there's Joseph, Darvla, Nisha and Keelan, 4 brilliant kids, 4 kids that he would be proud of, all fluent Irish speakers, and they learn their history and they know who they are and they know who they belong to. I'm just so proud to call him my daddy, their granddad, Joe McDonnell.
You can't talk about 1981 without talking about the hunger strikes and the dark days that we experienced. But whenever you look at the sacrifice that the hunger strikers made, the sacrifice that Joe and the rest of our comrades made in that dark year of 81, it also leaves you with the sense that we have to ensure that their legacy is a New Ireland. It's something, a type of society that our young people can live in, our young people can enjoy, their sense of Irishness, their sense of moving forward. When you look back at that, the dark days of 81, and you look out the window here today, you do understand that the legacy that they left us, the legacy of sacrifice, the legacy of struggle, that is what has made the difference. That Joe McDonald and the rest of his comrades have ensured that the life that our children lead will be very, very different from the lives that we led. So, Guramagat Chelsea, Guramagat our Gumradiha.
Oh, me name is Joe McDonald. From Belfast town I came. That city I'll never see again. Oh, for in the town of Belfast I spent many happy days. Loved the town in oh so many ways. For it's there I'd spend my childhood, and I found for me a wife. We then set out to make across the line. Oh, but all my young ambitions met with bitterness and hate. I soon found myself inside a prison gate. And you dare to call me a terrorist, while you look down your gun. When I think of all the deeds that you have done, you've plundered many nations, you've divided many lands, you have terrorized our people, you rule with your iron hand, and you brought this reign of terror to my land. Through those many months interment in the Maidstone and Longkish, I thought about my land throughout those days. Why my country was divided, why I was now in jail, prison without crime or without trial. And although I love my country, I am not a bitter man. I've seen cruelty and injustice at first hand. Then one cold and fateful morning, I shook bold freedom's hands. For right or wrong, I tried to free my land. And you dare to call me a terrorist while you look down your gun. When I think of all the deeds that you have done, you've plundered many nations, divided many lands, you have terrorized our people, you rule with an iron hand, and you brought the strain of terror to my land. Then one cold October's morning, I was trapped in a lion's den, and I found myself in prison once again. I was committed to the cage blocks for 14 years or more. On the blanket their conditions they were poor. Then a hunger strike me demands for the dignity of man, and it seemed to be that no one gave a damn. Oh, but now I am a sad man, I've watched my comrades die. Only people cared or wondered why. And you dare to call me a terrorist while you look down your gun. When I think of all the deeds that you have done, you plundered many nations, you've divided many lands, you have terrorized our people, you rule with your iron hand, and you brought this reign of terror to my land. Oh, may God shine on you, Bobby Sands, for the courage you have shown. May your glory and your name be widely known. Then young Francis Hughes and Ray McCreech, who died on the selfish will be. Then Patsy O'Hara, and the next in line is we. Oh, and those who lie behind me, I know your courage would be the same. And I pray to God our lives are not in vain. Oh, but sad and bitter was the year of 1981, when I think that we have lost, but we have won.